Maya never intended to be curious that night. She was exhausted, weighed down by overtime hours and the kind of silence that clings to an empty office after midnight. The city above had already emptied out, its streets hollow except for the occasional taxi splashing through puddles. She told herself the subway would be uneventful. Just steel wheels, screeching rails, and the comfort of routine. But when the Green Line train pulled into the station, she realized this ride would not be like the others. The noise of its approach was louder, more grating, as though the brakes screamed not in function but in protest. Sparks flared against the dark tunnel walls, scattering quick shadows over the cracked tiles. Hearies tracked the arriving cars one by one, weary but observant, until her gaze froze on something her brain struggled to accept. The fourth car looked wrong. The first detail that struck her was the doors. They weren't just closed, they were welded. Heavy beads of silver metal clung to the seams where rubber should have been, ugly scars that caught the flickering light. Across the middle, faded red stenciled letters spelled out "of service." The paint cracked and crumbling like it had been there for decades, yet the cars before and after looked newer, their graffiti fresher, their rust less corroded. The sealed one looked ancient, not just old in years but in weight, like a relic from a story no one told anymore. Maya's pulse quickened. She shifted her bag higher on her shoulder and almost stepped back from the yellow line, as though putting distance between herself and that single car would restore normalcy. But then she saw the windows. Every other window on the train was smeared with fingerprints and dulled by grime, the kind of filth that accumulates from decades of commuters leaning, sighing, sleeping against them. These windows were spotless, clean, gleaming faintly under the buzzing station lights, as though someone had polished them from the inside. The effect was unsettling, not reassuring. Glass that clean demanded attention. Her eyes locked on them despite herself, waiting for a sign that something, anything, was wrong enough to explain it. The train stopped with a jolt, metal shrieking as it settled. The doors hissed open. Passengers shuffled forward, their shoes tapping against the wet concrete. And that's when Maya noticed something more disturbing than the sealed car itself. No one entered near it. Commuters drifted casually toward other doors, but their movement carried a subtle tension, an avoidance. A man in a trench coat who had been lined up directly in front of car 4 stopped short, adjusted his pace, and stepped 2 cars down instead. A woman clutching a crying child turned so sharply that the toddler's head bumped her shoulder, and she dragged him toward a different set of doors. Nobody looked at the sealed car. Not once, not even with curiosity. It wasn't absence, it was intent. They were avoiding it because they knew. Maya hesitated. Her rational mind told her to follow the others, to board far from that strange anomaly. But another part of her, the restless, questioning part that had grown up searching for patterns and shadows, compelled her forward. She stepped into the car directly behind the sealed one, the door sliding shut behind her with a metallic sigh. The bench was cold against her thighs as she sat, her breath visible in the chilly air. She placed her bag in her lap and tried to look away, to pretend it was just another night. But the magnetism of car 4 pulled her gaze again and again. She leaned slightly, peering through the narrow connecting doors window. The sealed car sat silent and sterile, its spotless glass reflecting the platform lights. The train idled, humming low. The fluorescent bulbs above buzzed, flickered once, then steadied. She tried to distract herself with graffiti on the tiled walls, overlapping letters, names of strangers, symbols long faded. But when her eyes returned to the sealed windows, she froze. For a moment, no more than the time it takes to blink. She saw movement inside. A ripple, like a shadow sliding across the floor. Not sharp enough to define, but real enough to make her chest tighten. Her breath hitched, and she blinked hard, leaning closer to the glass. But the windows now reflected only the lights and her own pale face, empty, still, as though daring her to question herself. Her skin prickled. She whispered, "It's nothing, just your mind." But the words rang hollow. She glanced at the other passengers, seeking confirmation, but they were locked in silence. The trenchcoat man stared at his shoes as though memorizing them. The mother cradled her child, face turned deliberately away. None of them spared even a glance toward car 4. Their silence filled the air heavier than sound. It was the silence of people keeping a secret they all shared, one Maya had been excluded from. The conductor leaned from the front cab, blew a sharp whistle, and the train lurched forward. Metal screamed against metal, the vibration rattling Maya's seat. Her eyes snapped back to car 4 just as it slid past the final stretch of platform and into the tunnel's shadow. And there, in that last sliver of light, she saw it, a face in the spotless window, pale, hollow-eyed, pressed against the glass as though it had been waiting for her gaze. Her heart stopped. She blinked hard, but when her vision cleared, the window showed only her reflection. The train plunged into darkness, carrying her forward, leaving the platform behind, and the question slammed into her chest with a weight she couldn't shake. If the car was sealed, who was inside? The train plunged into the tunnel, the platform vanishing behind her in a smear of shadows and tile. Maya sat rigid, her hands clutching the strap of her bag so tightly that her knuckles throbbed. The rattle of wheels echoed through the car, metallic and relentless, a sound she'd heard countless times before but now couldn't unhear. It was too loud, too sharp, like the train itself was screaming. She tried to focus on her breathing, tried to count the seconds between each flicker of overhead lights, but her eyes betrayed her, drifting back to the connecting door at the far end of the car. Through its small rectangular window, she could see Car 4. It sat like a silent passenger itself, attached but apart, an unwelcome guest chained to the train's body. The spotless glass gleamed faintly each time the tunnel lights flashed by. She told herself it was only reflections, only light and speed. But then, in one of those blinks of illumination, she thought she saw mist curling inside, swirling like smoke caught in a draft. By the time she blinked, the mist was gone or had never been. Her skin prickled with sweat despite the chill in the air. She shifted her gaze to the other passengers, searching desperately for validation, for someone else's wide eyes or startled expression. But they were statues. The trenchcoat man still stared at his shoes. The mother still held her now silent child, rocking him in steady rhythm. A college student, no older than 20, sat across from her scrolling his phone. Only the screen didn't change. His thumb moved in the familiar swipe motion, but the glass stayed black. No text, no glow, no battery symbol, just black. Maya's breath caught, and she looked away quickly, as if refusing to see might undo the truth pressing against her. The tunnel roared louder, the lights flickering faster now, like a heartbeat accelerating. With each flash, the sealed car's windows revealed shapes, shadows that didn't match the rhythm of the train's sway. They weren't reflections, they were movements, something shifting inside. She gripped the seat beneath her, her nails digging into the cracked vinyl. Then the intercom crackled to life. Static hissed, broken by the conductor's voice, but this time his tone wasn't neutral. It was strained, lower, almost pleading. The words came fractured, fighting through the static, but clear enough to slice through her chest. Do not approach Car 4. The sound froze her in place. Her pulse hammered so loudly she was sure others could hear it. She darted her eyes around the car, waiting for passengers to react, to flinch, to exchange nervous glances, but nothing. No one moved. Not a blink, not a stir. The trenchcoat man's head dipped lower as if asleep. The mother rocked her child with mechanical precision. The student's thumb still swiped endlessly on the dead screen. The silence that followed was worse than the warning itself. Maya swallowed hard, her throat dry as sandpaper. Was she the only one who heard it? Or was she the only one allowed to? Her mind raced through possibilities. Maybe the message wasn't for all of them, maybe it was just for her. But why? She hugged her bag tighter, whispering to herself, "This isn't real. You're tired, that's all." The lie sounded weak, even in her own ears. The train screeched through a curve, sparks briefly lighting the tunnel in fiery arcs. For an instant, the glow illuminated Car 4's windows and her stomach lurched. Condensation streaked down the glass, not outside, but inside. As though dozens of breaths had fugged it pressed against it, the streaks dripped slowly, eerily, like sweat running down skin. Her heart slammed into her ribs. She blinked hard, forcing her eyes shut. But in the darkness behind her lids, she saw it more clearly. Hands, dozens of them, pressed flat against the glass. Long fingers leaving ghostly prints. A shape leaning close, mouth moving as though whispering against the pain. She snapped her eyes open, gasping, and the window looked empty again. Spotless, clean, innocent. She wiped her palms against her jeans, breath shaking. Her rational mind begged her to move further down the car, to get as far away from that sealed door as possible. But Herbity disobeyed, frozen by something deeper than fear. It wasn't just curiosity, it was recognition, like a predator and prey locking eyes across a field. She couldn't prove it, couldn't admit it out loud, but she felt it in her bones. Car 4 had noticed her, and once noticed, she knew. There was no pretending anymore. The train shrieked into the next station, brakes grinding so loudly that Maya winced and pressed her hands against her ears. Sparks rained against the tunnel walls before the steel beast came to a halt. The doors slid open with their usual hiss, but the silence that followed felt unnatural, stretched too thin, as if even the air hesitated to move. A handful of passengers shuffled off, their footsteps echoing on the cracked tile floor. Others boarded, dragging bags, muttering under their breath. Yet even in the tired chaos of late-night commuters, Maya noticed the pattern again. No one went near Car 4. The sealed doors lined up perfectly with the platform's edge, glowing faintly under the buzzing lights, but the crowd flowed around them like water around stone. People walked toward Car 3, Car 5, anywhere but there. Some diverted early, adjusting their stride as if subconsciously unwilling to get too close. Maya's pulse quickened as she realized it wasn't just avoidance. It was ritual. They weren't simply ignoring it. They were obeying something. Her gaze landed on a boy no older than 6, his small hand tucked into his mother's grip. He lagged behind, his eyes fixed on Car 4's spotless windows. His face was pale, lips parted as though he were about to say something, but no words came. His mother tugged sharply, whispering something urgent, but he resisted, twisting at the waist. His gaze never broke from that car. For a fleeting second, Maya thought she saw the boy's reflection in the glass, but it wasn't his reflection at all. It was taller, older, and it leaned close to the window, mirroring him perfectly until his mother yanked him away and dragged him toward another car. Maya's skin went cold. She wanted to believe her eyes were playing tricks, that exhaustion warped her perception, but the weight in her chest told her otherwise. Something had looked back. She pressed herself into her seat as the new passengers settled around her. A man in a hoodie dropped heavily into the corner, pulling his cap low over his face. A woman in office attire set down a plastic grocery bag, the items inside clinking like glass bottles. Their presence should have been comforting, normal, but as Maya scanned their faces, she noticed the same stillness, the same unnatural lack of curiosity. None of them glanced toward the sealed car, not even a flicker of attention. It was as if they had been told in advance, "Do not look." The train jolted forward again, pulling away from the platform. Maya turned back to the connecting door, to that small rectangular window leading into car 4. Her breath hitched. For the briefest heartbeat, a shape pressed against the glass, a blurred figure, faceless, fogging the window from the inside. She blinked hard and the glass was spotless once more, empty, innocent. Her chest heaved as she forced herself to look away. She told herself to count stops, to measure distance, to keep her mind anchored in the familiar. 4 more stations until home, 4 more. She could endure anything for that long. But when she glanced sideways, she saw the boy again, or thought she did. His reflection rippled in the glass opposite her seat, faint, wrong, mouth moving silently. Words formed but carried no sound. "Don't ride it," she thought he mouthed. Or maybe it was "don't fight it." The reflection blurred before she could be sure. She whipped her head around, but the boy was gone, vanished into another car with his mother. The window beside car 4 gleamed, spotless, waiting. Her stomach knotted. She had the sudden suffocating sense that the car was not just sealed metal and glass. It was aware. It was listening. The train plunged deeper into the tunnels, its rhythm growing steadier, almost hypnotic, the endless rattle of steel on steel. Maya pressed her palms flat against her thighs, forcing herself to sit still, but her heartbeat wouldn't slow. She tried to distract herself by focusing on the blur outside, graffiti streaks flashing and vanishing, the occasional maintenance light glowing yellow in the dark. The tunnel was a strobing gallery of shadows and shapes. Eerie's began to play tricks on her, turning rust into red eyes, cracks into reaching hands. She turned away, pressing her temple to the glass to ground herself. The cold bit her skin, anchoring her to the present, but then her breath caught in her throat. Her reflection stared back at her from the window, as expected. Pale skin, tired eyes, strands of hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. Yet behind her shoulder lingered another face. It was faint, blurred, like a figure standing just outside the range of focus, its outline wasteler than hers, its features indistinct, but its eyes, those hollow dark pits, stared directly into hers through the mirror of glass. Maya jolted upright, heart slamming into her ribs. She whipped around, scanning the car. Nothing. Just the same passengers in their strange mannequin stillness. The hoodie man slumped forward, cap pulled low. The office woman stared at the floor, grocery bag resting between her shoes. The mother rocked her child without sound, lips moving in a whisper too low to hear. None of them looked at her. None of them moved. Her breath came fast, shallow. She turned back to the window, dread pooling in her stomach. The second face was gone. Only her reflection remained wide-eyed and pale, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the other presence hadn't vanished. It had simply retreated, biding its time. The overhead lights flickered, plunging the car into darkness for a single second. In that instant, the reflection changed again. She wasn't staring at her own face anymore. She was staring at the window of car 4. The glass reflected not just her, but the sealed car ahead, glowing faintly as if it had been waiting for the blackout. She saw shapes move inside it, faint silhouettes shifting along the aisle. One leaned close to the window, features smeared by condensation. Its mouth opened wide as though screaming, but no sound reached her ears. The light blinked back on, and the glass showed only her terrified face once more. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped her bag. She whispered, "Stop, please stop." But the words dissolved into the hum of the rails. She pressed her hand to the glass, trying to convince herself it was just cold, lifeless material. But the instant her skin touched it, warmth bloomed under her palm, as if someone pressed back from the other side. Maya yanked her hand away with a strangled gasp. Her eyes darted to the sealed car again. Its spotless windows gleamed faintly. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw fingerprints smearing across the inside, dragging downward in long, wet streaks. Then the train rocketed into another curve, and the illusion vanished. Her chest heaved as she tried to breathe, to anchor herself in logic. She whispered to herself, "It's just light, just reflections, that's all." But deep down she knew the truth, the one she couldn't admit. The reflection wasn't just mimicking her anymore. It was watching. It was learning, and with every flicker of the lights, it was getting closer. The train shuddered and screeched as it slowed for the next stop. Maya's stomach tightened when she realized she didn't recognize the station. The tiled walls looked older than the others she'd seen, cracked and water-stained, their faded advertisements peeling in long strips. The air smelled of damp stone and rust, stronger here than anywhere else. The overhead bulbs buzzed faintly, one flickering in a nervous rhythm like a failing heartbeat. The doors hissed open, but no one moved. Passengers stayed rooted in place, blank eyes staring at nothing. The platform itself was nearly empty, only a single janitor pushing a mop across the far side. His motion was slow, methodical, his gaze fixed downward. Maya leaned forward, hoping for a glimpse of normality in his presence. But when his head turned briefly toward the sealed car, his face changed. His expression went pale, eyes wide with something like recognition. He froze, the mop handle trembling in his hands, then abruptly dropped it and hurried off the platform without looking back. The sound of his footsteps echoed, sharp and panicked, until it vanished into the tunnels. Maya swallowed hard. Her eyes shifted to Car 4, perfectly aligned with the platform. Its doors remained welded, its windows spotless. Yet tonight they weren't lifeless. A faint glow pulsed inside, so weak she might have dismissed it as reflection, except it repeated, rhythmic, like a steady beat. She felt her chest tighten in time with it. A pulse, a heartbeat. Her breath came shallow, her throat dry. She gripped her bag tighter as if its straps could anshore her. The glow inside the sealed car brightened, then dimmed, then brightened again. The rhythm matched her own heartbeat, until she couldn't tell whether it was her chest racing or the car itself breathing. The mother across from her adjusted her child, rocking him gently. But as the dim glow of Car 4 washed across her face, Maya realized something horrifying. The child wasn't breathing. His chest didn't rise or fall. His small face pressed against his mother's shoulder, mouth slack but utterly still. Maya blinked hard, disbelief clawing through her mind. She glanced at the man in the hoodie. His chest, too, stayed still. The office woman with the grocery bag sat perfectly motionless, not even her eyes blinking. Her own heart slammed harder, faster. She whispered under her breath, "No, no, no, no." The sealed car pulsed again. This time the glow didn't fade, it swelled. It lit the cracked tiles of the platform, casting faint shadows that writhed like moving figures. Maya's eyes locked onto the glass. Condensation streaked downward, fogging it from the inside. For a split second, she swore she saw a palm press flat against the pane. Then another, and another. Fingers splayed, dragging across the spotless surface, leaving trails that dripped slowly like sweat. Her body wanted to run, to bolt off the train and into the platform. But her legs refused to move. Her breath came too fast, shallow and sharp, as though the car's glow had stolen the air around her. She squeezed her eyes shut, hoping the darkness inside her lids would block it out. But even there, the light pulsed behind her vision, searing white against the black. The conductor's voice crackled through the speakers, broken by static, but the words came clear enough to gut her. "Do not step out. Remain where you are." Her eyes flew open and the doors slammed shut. The train jolted, pulling away from the platform with a scream of metal. But the glow inside Car 4 didn't dim. It followed, burning steady, beating in rhythm with her heart. And in that moment, Maya knew the car wasn't just sealed to keep something in. It was sealed because something alive, something waiting, was inside. The deeper the train carried her, the heavier the air became, metallic and stale like an abandoned basement. Maya shifted uncomfortably on her seat, her eyes flicking again and again toward the connecting door. From its edges, faint mist curled and spread, delicate threads that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Her mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it was condensation, maybe a pressure leak, but her body knew better. It felt wrong, like breath from a hidden mouth. She scanned the passengers again. Every face was waxy, every movement mechanical. The hoodie man hadn't shifted once. The office woman's grocery bag no longer clinked. It was utterly still, as though frozen in time. The child in his mother's arms remained limp, chest unmoving, lips slightly parted in a silence too deep. The intercom crackled again. The conductor's voice emerged low and strained, wrapped in static. "Remain seated. Do not acknowledge Car 4. The words crawled across Maya's skin like spiders. Her breath stuttered as she realized no one reacted. Not a flinch, not a stir. She whispered, "Why only me? Why am I the only one hearing this?" But part of her already feared the answer. Her hands shook violently. She dug her nails into her palms until they broke the skin. Pain incurred her, but not enough to silence the dread building in her chest. The mist thickened, curling around her shoes, and she swore she heard whispers carried within it, faint voices pressing against her ears. The train thundered through another stretch of tunnel, graffiti flashing like broken neon signs. Maya tried to fix her eyes on them, tried to drown herself in the distraction. But then it happened. A glowing handprint bloomed on the sealed car's window. Her breath caught. The hand pressed firmly against the spotless glass, long fingers stretching unnaturally wide. She stared in horror as the condensation spread, smearing downward in long streaks. Then another handprint appeared beside it, and another. Within seconds, the window was crowded with palms, overlapping. Desperate, her throat constricted, she whispered, "No one's there. It isn't real." But the lie shattered when one hand moved, slowly, dragging downward with a screeching sound that seemed to echo inside her bones. Maya slapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. She forced her eyes away, but her reflection betrayed her, showing her what she refused to see. Shapes writhing inside Car 4, pressing closer. Eager, the train lurched, throwing sparks against the tunnel walls. And she understood. The car wasn't just alive, it was hungry. At the next stop, the doors sighed open to reveal a deserted platform. Only a single broken vending machine stood against the wall, humming faintly. The air smelled damp like rain-soaked metal. Passengers rose from their seats, but once again, none stepped toward Car 4. They drifted away as though repelled by an unseen force. Maya's chest tightened. She wanted to flee, to bolt onto the platform, to run until her legs collapsed. But her body betrayed her, glued to the seat. Her eyes locked on the sealed car's windows. Shadows shifted inside, faint but deliberate, as though pacing. A sudden noise broke her trance, the clatter of footsteps. A man in a janitor's uniform stepped into view, carrying a tool bag. He paused in front of Car 4, his face twisted with fear, but instead of moving away, he whispered something to himself, knelt, and traced the welded seam with his gloved hand. Maya leaned forward, breath shallow. The glow from the windows flared, spilling pale light across his face. He stumbled back, dropped his bag, and ran into the darkness without a glance behind. The doors shut. The train roared forward, dragging the sealed car deeper underground, and the glow inside pulsed stronger than before, as if feeding. The lights dimmed to red, casting the car in a sickly glow. Maya's heart thundered as her reflection stared back from the window, wide eyes, trembling lips. But then her blood froze. Behind her reflection stood another, taller, darker, its face blurred, but its presence undeniable. She whipped around. Nothing, just passengers locked in silence, their waxy faces glowing red. She turned back, pulse hammering in her ears. The shadow behind her reflection lingered still, closer now, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Her breath came ragged. She tried to close her eyes, but the glass pulled her gaze back, demanding. With each flicker of the lights, the shadow leaned nearer. The intercom crackled once more, softer this time, almost a whisper brushing against her ear. Car 4 remembers. Maya's stomach twisted. Remembers what? Or who? The answer settled heavy in her chest. It remembered her. The train roared past a branching maintenance tunnel, its mouth yawning like a wound in the earth. Sparks lit the walls, painting the sealed car in fleeting light. And that's when Maya saw it, a face, clear, pressed against the spotless glass. Pale skin stretched tight over bone, hollow black eyes locked onto hers with unblinking hunger. Its lips didn't move, but she felt the words ripple inside her chest. Almost there. Her stomach dropped. She clutched the seat, trying to anchor herself, but the train carried her forward, deeper and deeper. The face vanished with the next flicker of light, leaving spotless glass once more. But the image lingered, almost there. Wherever there was, Maya knew with sick certainty it wasn't home. The further the train carried her, the less real the world felt. Maya pressed her palms into her knees, trying to ground herself, but every vibration of the train rattled her bones like a warning bell. The connecting door at the far end hummed faintly. Mist curled from its seams, not steam, not smoke, something thicker, colder. She stared as it slithered along the floor, reaching like fingers. Her chest tightened. She wanted to stand, to move, to scream, but her muscles felt heavy, frozen under an invisible weight. The passengers were worse now. The hoodie man hadn't moved in nearly 20 minutes. His head slumped forward unnaturally, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The office woman's grocery bag sat perfectly upright between her feet, but she hadn't blinked once. The mother's lips moved, whispering something into her child's ear. But when Maya leaned forward, her stomach dropped. The child's mouth moved too, matching word for word, syllable for syllable. as though reciting some chant in perfect synchrony. The mist thickened, crawling up her legs now, cold and damp. Her breath hitched, and then for the first time, the sealed car itself made a sound, a low, guttural thump, once, twice, 3 times. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, and she realized with horror what the rhythm matched. It was a heartbeat. The car wasn't just sealed, it was alive. The intercom crackled again, softer, almost broken. The conductor's voice spilling through static. Remain seated. Do not look inside. But it was too late. Maya's eyes had already locked on the spotless glass of car 4, and in its glow, she saw movement, shapes pressing against the windows, slow, deliberate, patient. They weren't asking to be freed. They were waiting for someone to join them. The train screeched around a sharp bend, and suddenly the tunnel widened. Maya's breath caught in her throat as the walls stretched outward into a cavernous chamber she had never seen on any map. The ceiling arched high above, dripping water into black pools along the sides. The rails trembled, sparks bursting like fireflies as the train slowed. Her eyes darted to car 4. Its glow pulsed brighter than ever, washing the cavern walls in pale, unnatural light. Through the spotless windows, shadows shifted. At first they looked vague, hazy, like smoke given form. But as the train slowed further, they sharpened. Figures, tall, skeletal, their limbs bent wrong, their heads tilted in jerks. They didn't pace randomly. They moved in a circle, in unison, like dancers caught in an endless ritual. The train hissed to a halt in the center of the chamber. Maya gripped her seat until her knuckles ached. The intercom buzzed, but the voice that came through wasn't the conductor's. It was layered, distorted, as though a dozen voices spoke at once, weaving together. End of the line. Her pulse stuttered. This wasn't her stop. This wasn't any stop. The doors slid open, exhaling damp, sour air. Passengers rose in unison. Their motions were slow, mechanical. They shuffled out onto the platform that wasn't really a platform at all, just an outcropping of stone, slick with moss and dripping water. None of them looked back. None acknowledged the cavern or the impossible ritual inside car 4. Maya's legs trembled as she forced herself to stay seated. She whispered, "Don't move, don't move." But car 4 pulsed again, its glow spilling brighter, its shadows pressing harder against the glass. She felt it then, not in her eyes, but in her chest. A pull, like invisible hands tugging at her ribcage, urging her forward, urging her to leave her seat. The figures inside the sealed car had stopped circling. They faced the window now, and they were waiting. Her body moved before her mind caught up. Maya stumbled into the aisle, her shoes clicking against the floor in the silence. She didn't want to move. Every nerve in her screamed to sit down, to stay. But her legs carried her anyway, pulled like a marionette's strings. She glanced around wildly, searching for someone else awake, someone alive. But the passengers were gone now. The hoodie man's seat sat empty. The office woman's bag was overturned, its contents spilled but silent. The mother's bench was vacant. Only Maya remained. The connecting door loomed closer. Its frame dripped with condensation, streaks running down like tears. Mist poured steadily from the edges now, thick enough to curl around her ankles as she stepped closer. Her breath came ragged, her heart pounding in her ears. She wanted to scream for the conductor, but the intercom stayed silent. Her hand lifted, trembling, reaching for the window. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, terrified, but wrong. Its lips moved when hers didn't. She froze, her breath stuck in her throat. The reflection whispered, its voice sliding into her mind, though the glass remained shut. Because it rides better with company. Her hand snapped back as if burned. She stumbled, nearly falling, her chest heaving. The glow from car 4 brightened, flooding the cavern in pale light. The figures inside pressed closer, their outlines sharp now, their hollow faces turned to hers. The train groaned, metal echoing through the chamber. And Maya knew with sickening certainty, the sealed car wasn't sealed forever. It was sealed again, and again, and again. Each time it took someone. Each time it waited for its next. And tonight, it had chosen her. The glow flared so bright it hurt to look. Maya shielded her eyes, but through the cracks of her fingers she saw it. A face pressed against the glass of car 4. Its skin was pale, stretched tight, veins pulsing faint blue beneath. Its hollow eyes fixed directly on hers, unblinking, endless. Its mouth curved into a smile, sharp and cruel. Her own reflection hovered beside it, smaller, trembling, fading. The figure lifted its hand and pressed it against the window. A glowing handprint spread across the spotless glass. Maya's breath stuttered as her own hand lifted against her will. Her palm pressed to the glass. Heat seared her skin, burning and freezing at once. Her reflection grinned wider, hollow eyes widening with triumph. The face inside leaned closer, its breath fogging the pain. Maya screamed, but no sound came. The cavern swallowed her voice, leaving only the pulse of the car and the hiss of mist. The glow wrapped around her like chains. Her bones ached, her body trembling as though something reached through the glass, tugging her soul. She fought to pull away, but the harder she struggled, the stronger the pull became. And then, in one horrifying instant, she understood. The car wasn't feeding on her fear. It was trading places. The glass cracked like ice under her palm. Light spilled out, blinding, consuming. Maya screamed again, but the sound died in her chest. Her reflection grinned, its lips mouthing words she didn't want to hear. Welcome home. Her body jerked forward. She felt herself stretch, tear, split between two places at once. For a moment, she was inside and outside, her own eyes staring back at her from the other side of the glass. Her reflection's smile widened as her body dissolved into light, sucked into the sealed car. The glow flared, swallowing the cavern, the rails, the walls, and then, as suddenly as it came, it vanished. The car sat dark again, silent, spotless. The train lurched, the doors hissed shut, and it began to move. Empty seats lined the cars, silent and still. The cavern slipped into shadow as the train carried its secret deeper into the tunnels, and Car 4's windows gleamed once more, spotless, waiting. The intercom crackled one last time, the conductor's voice calm, steady, final. Do not approach Car 4. Then the train was gone.